it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I'm hoping to read this next month of April. So I have an injury. I don't know if you can actually see the band-aid that's on my finger, but I was trying to be like a good little content creator, and I'm trying to like film a reel or a TikTok at the same time that I'm filming the video. So I was like holding the stack of books to show, and the thing just toppled over, and I was like, oh, no big deal. That's happened a million times. I just felt bad because my boyfriend's on midnights and he's sleeping right now, and it sounded really bad. So I was going and I was like picking up the books and everything, putting them into stacks. As you're watching, like I'll show the clip, but you can see where it goes wrong. There's like this stack of 4 or 5 books in the middle that are not secure. So they were ready to go and I just wasn't really paying attention. But it's not the first time. It won't be the last. You would think after 7 years of doing this that I figured out like how to stack books properly so that they're more stable and how to hold the books, but I haven't. I probably have like thousands of pictures of me just holding stacks of books, but I still can't do it properly. But anyways, as I was stacking them up afterwards, my finger was throbbing and I was like, why is my finger throbbing? And then I looked and I saw that I had a paper cut that was like gushing blood. And I was like, well, how did that happen? Like, I haven't done anything. And then it occurred to me that it happened while I was holding the books. One of them must have, as it was falling, like sliced through my finger, which I've never had happen before. I had a mark on the middle of my nose from taking an Instagram photo with books on my head, and the books actually fell and hit me on the nose. So I've had that before, and that was for like all of Bookmas a couple years ago. I just had this little red mark right on my forehead, but that's the only like actual book injury that I can recall. But books are dangerous, okay? That's what we've established here. Anyways, so the theme for April is honestly, I'm just going with the flow. I'm reading whatever I want. A lot of it is just like fun stuff, but I'm happy to say that like all the books that I've picked out, I am really, really excited for, because I've kind of been in a slump lately where I haven't really had the time or the energy to read, but the book that I'm reading right now has kind of been getting me out of that. So I'm currently reading I Must Betray You by Rudis Petties, and her books just have a way of like making me want to read, and this one is totally doing it. Even though I am kind of strapped for time a little bit, it is one that I look forward to picking up, and because of that I've been actually like blocking out some time to do that. So I do have like a couple of historical fictions in here, given that I Must Betray You is a historical fiction, so kind of going with that. I've got some fantasies, I've got just a little bit of everything. So the first book that I wanted to talk about today is A Forgery of Roses by Jessica S. Olson. So today's video is actually very kindly sponsored by Unported Press, and thank you so much to them for working with me today. I am super excited to talk about this latest release from them. This is actually by the same author as Sing Me Forgotten, which is a Phantom of the Opera retelling that came out last year or a couple years ago, but this is her latest book. This book is about the main character, Myra Whitlock, and she has a gift, but it's a gift that many people would kill her for, so she actually has to work very hard to hide it. Her gift is that she's an artist, but it goes beyond just being artistic. She's an artist whose portraits actually alter people's real life bodies. Since their parents are gone, she has to keep this secret closer than ever to protect herself and her younger sister. Unfortunately, the governor's wife ends up discovering this gift of hers and ends up blackmailing her and threatening to reveal her if she doesn't do a portrait of their dead son that would resurrect him. So Myra's feeling really desperate, and she ends up going to their mansion, and as she's learning more about the son's death, she discovers that it was no accident. But Myra can't actually do the portrait until she knows what actually happens, so she ends up turning to the surviving oldest son, who happens to be a captivating redheaded poet. So together they embark upon this gothic murder mystery, trying to figure out what actually happened to his brother. I think this concept sounds so unique and incredible, and like everything that I want. Like the portrait magic and this murder mystery, it has a little bit of everything, so I am so excited to read this book, and it's definitely at the top of my TBR for this month. So I definitely encourage you guys to go and check it out, and I will have a link down below for you guys to do just that. And thank you once again so much to Unported Press for sponsoring today's video. So next, as I had mentioned, I'm reading I Must Betray You, and that is a historical fiction. So one historical fiction that I have had on my TBR for quite a while now is Angel of Greenwood by Brandy Pink. I've really been wanting to read this book, but I've kind of been waiting until I'm in the right mood for it, as if there really is a right mood, but because I know that this this is going to be a really difficult read. This is set in Oklahoma during, I believe it's the late 1920s or the 1930s, 1921. So I was incorrect, but I was kind of close. But it's set in Greenwood, and it is following the Greenwood Massacre. You have two characters who are forming this relationship, but then there's this absolutely vicious white mob that attacks the community of Greenwood, and that's also known as Black Wall Street. And I've read one book about this before, and I found it very interesting, like a really difficult read because of how honest and terrifying it is. But I haven't really heard all that much about this book, to be honest, so I'm hoping that it is going to be an underrated book that I can recommend to you guys, because I'm always looking for those hidden gems. The number of books that I have in front of me is not even funny. Like, I don't know why I grabbed so many books when I've literally been able to read like one book within 2 weeks lately. I don't know what I was thinking, but we were feeling ambitious. So the next couple of books that I have here are both by Tracy Chee. So first of all, we have The Reader, which is a fantasy by Tracy Chee. It's actually, I don't know if it's a trilogy or it's just a duology. I'm pretty sure it's just a duology, but this has been out for a few years now and I haven't read it yet, but having read We Are Not Free has made me want to read like everything by this author. So I definitely would like to pick this one up, and especially because I would like to read her latest book, which is 1,000 Steps Into Night, and this came out pretty recently. So this is a Japanese inspired fantasy and it deals with demons and stuff. It seems really interesting, but I would like to read both of these because I loved We Are Not Free so much, so I feel like it just makes sense. Next up, I have here my giant stack of Colleen Hoover books, which actually I have another one over there that just came in that I haven't hauled yet that I need to read. So I would like to do my little Colleen Hoover reading vlog this month. I'm hoping to kind of do some themed reading vlogs this month, but I've been holding off a little bit just until I'm out of my slump. However, I feel like Colleen Hoover, like these books are really good because they're super readable and just fast, quick, easy reads. So I think that these would be good ones to get me out of my slump. So I feel like it makes sense, and April will be the time to do it. Next up is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I had heard from someone, I think they commented on my book haul actually, where I just included this, but they said that this book is a really great audiobook, and I have been looking for audiobooks lately because while I'm working, I have a lot of time that I can listen to audiobooks, but I've been having a hard time like picking which ones. So if you have any audiobooks that you have listened to recently, like specifically more recent releases, please let me know down below which ones you really loved, because I would love to know which books that I have on my TBR that I should try and get to on audio. But I know that I have listened to both of Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books and really loved the audiobook, so I'm thinking that they probably are right, the person who said that this is a great audiobook. So I think that's the way that I'm going to go with this one. But this book is her latest release from last year. She has another book coming out. I'm not exactly sure when, if it's going to be this year or whatever, but this one deals with 4 siblings, and they're 4 famous siblings. They're going to throw this epic end of summer party, but it ends up being 24 hours that are going to change the course of their lives forever. Dun dun dun, the drama. Next up is Atlas by Heart by Stephen Sater. Speaking of audiobooks, I'm hoping that I can find this one on audio because I think physically reading it, I'm super nervous about that. Now this is actually based on a Broadway play, and I actually think it's a musical specifically, but it's essentially during the London Blitz, you're following characters who are in the tube taking shelter, and they are turning to Alice in Wonderland to find refuge. So it's kind of like an Alice in Wonderland retelling. So everything about that just seems like everything I love. Like, obviously I love Alice in Wonderland, we know that by now, but I also love historical fiction and I love touching, heartfelt stories. So that's definitely the vibe that I'm getting from this one. However, when I started trying to read it, which I did that when it first came out, I found it was super duper dense. Like, I was kind of having a hard time with the writing and everything. So I'm hoping that there's an audio. Oh, I didn't even realize, I thought it was signed by the author, but it says Alice Spencer, so it's just the character. So that was dumb. But anyways, I feel like audio is just going to be the best way for me to consume this story. Sometimes when books are really dense and they're like, there's not a lot of dialogue, they're more prose heavy, then I kind of can get caught up in it and I'll get a little bit bored. So that's why I'm hoping I can find this one to listen to. If not, I do still want to try and read it. I think part of my skepticism too is that I've been kind of like looking at my Goodreads and seeing what the highest average rated books are that I have on my TBR and what the lowest average rated books are on my TBR, and this one's one of the lowest, so I'm kind of nervous. Next I have Salam with Love by Sarah Sharaf Beg. So I would really like to read this book because it is actually set during Ramadan, and April is the month of Ramadan, so it seems like the most appropriate time to read it, obviously. But this is following a character who she lives in this small apartment in Queens with her family, and she's excited to be spending the month of Ramadan celebrating with her extended family as well. But however, she's also kind of struggling to find her place in a very conservative household. But my favorite part of this, which I'm just gonna read the back because I think it just really makes it hit home. As if fasting the whole day wasn't tiring enough, she must battle her hormones whenever she sees Hassan, a cute Muslim drummer who has a habit of showing up at her most awkward moments. I feel like this just sounds like it's going to be an adorable romance and all about the main character trying to find her place. I just love the whole thing already. The fact that I've already been recording for almost 19 minutes and I still have a bunch of books really tells me how like overly ambitious I have decided to be for this next month. But I have a whole huge stack, well, it's not huge, but a sizable stack of adult romances here that I would really like to get to. So we first have Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson. This is set in a publishing house, so like adorable. I'm currently doing an internship at a publishing house. Even though it is like a work from home thing, I still, you know, the vibes and everything. I feel like it's a fitting time to read this, and my internship is done at the end of June, so I would really like to read it while I'm still doing the internship, obviously. But it's about a girl who's working at like a literary fiction publishing house, but she loves writing romance and that's a secret of hers, but she ends up leaving a manuscript in like the secret room that she's been using at the publishing house, and when she goes back to retrieve it, she finds that someone has left notes in the margins. So sounds adorable. Like, I'm thinking through the manuscript they have a romance. Like, how cute is that? Then of course we have Four Aunties in a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I am so excited. Dial A for Aunties was one of my favorite books of last year. I absolutely adored it. It was so funny, but like just romantic. Everything about it just worked for me. I loved the characters. I was laughing out loud multiple times, like not even that far into the story. And also it was a second chance romance. Like, I think it was also Friends to Lovers, which, by the way, my confusion with second chance romance and Friends to Lovers is because I thought I had heard that like second chance romance, they weren't necessarily dating before. Maybe it was like a crush in the past that never actually happened, or they were friends in the past but they haven't seen each other in a long time. I don't know if that's like another trope, but that was just my misunderstanding about it. Anyways, I have no clue what this companion follows. I think it might be like a wedding of characters from the first book, which I'm so down for. I'm not even gonna look into what it's about because I just know that I'm gonna go into it and I'm gonna love it. So the next book that I'm hoping to read this month is another one that has been hyped up on TikTok a lot, I think. I haven't actually like come across it. I swear, like the book talk that I have found myself in, it's not really recommendations so much. It's more so like funny things, which I guess is because that's mostly what I've been posting. I don't really know, but apparently How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams has been very hyped up, so I would really like to read it. It's like a one daring to-do list and a crash course in flirtation. Turn to type A, overachiever's world upside down. I love anything that has to do with lists and like romance. It really gets me. Next is Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. This one came out recently and I just think it sounds absolutely incredible. It's about someone ends up sending a sexy text, a sext if you will, to the wrong number, and it ends up turning into this anonymous like flirting relationship via text. I just love that concept so much. There's so many ways it can play out. This is totally like what I'm in the mood for lately. I say as I'm reading like a more intense historical fiction, but I want to pick something like this up very soon. And finally for romances is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is by the author of, actually I have another one of her books on here. Where did I put it? Here it is, but we can't keep meeting like this. This is a YA book by her. This is her adult book, but honestly the sole reason that I want to read this, obviously it has to do with weather and a meteorologist, but because I'm like, well, April just makes me think of weather, like springtime makes me think of weather because it's always raining and stuff, so the cover just feels very fitting, which is kind of dumb, but honestly. But getting back to We Can't Keep Meeting Like This, both my sisters are getting married this year, so I'm kind of wanting to squeeze in some wedding reads, and I'm not sure if I want to get to all of them now. Like, I feel like what's going to happen is I'm going to keep on putting them off and be like, oh, I'll read it closer to the dates, but then I'm going to have too many and then I'm just not going to get to any of them. So I'm like, let's get a head start on things, because I have August and then October. Those are the 2 months of the weddings. But this one is about two characters. The one is the son of, is it the son of the caterer? Yes, the son of the caterer, and then the daughter of a harpist. And they end up at all the same weddings, and they have like an enemies to lovers relationship. Next up is Empress of All Seasons by Emiko Jean. For some reason, like, I don't know why, but spring just is the most season of seasons. Does that even make any sense? See, the thing is, it does make sense in my head because I feel like it's the most like weather time or whatever. But because of that, I really want to read this one. This is, oh, I have another book by her too. We're a mess today. Tokyo Dreaming. So this is the author of Tokyo Ever After, which I read last year, and this is the sequel. So I definitely want to try and get to this one because it's going to be so cute, adorable, royal romance, everything that I want. But this is a fantasy, and it's this palace of illusions where nothing is what it seems. And each generation, a competition is held to find the next empress. So the rules are simple: survive the palace's enchanted seasonal rooms, conquer winter, spring, summer, and fall, and then marry the prince. All are eligible to compete. So fascinating. Like, I don't know, something about that, it just gets me. I also have here A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin. This book like literally just came to my door today, and as I was marking it as to be read on Goodreads, I noticed that it's a historical fantasy, so that was what made me want to include it here. But look at this cover, like, oh my goodness, I cannot get enough of it. The more I look at it, the more beautiful it seems. Another book that just came to my doorstep is An Arrow to the Moon by Emily X.R. Pan. This is by the author of The Astonishing Color of After, which came out quite a few years ago now, but I fell in love with that book, and this is her most recent book since then, so I'm really excited to read it. I believe it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling. I just know, like, I loved her first book so much that I need to read this one. I would also really like to read Outrun the Moon by Stacey Lee, because this is the only Stacey Lee book that I haven't read yet. She is a historical fiction author. She writes really great, diverse historical fictions, which is something that's honestly pretty hard to find. But this one is set in San Francisco in 1906, and you are following a 15-year-old character who is determined to break from the poverty of Chinatown. So she wants to get an education at the school for girls. She thinks that is her best hope of doing that. The problem is that it is a school that's off limits to all except for the most wealthiest white girls, but she manages to actually get her way in through bribery. I haven't been disappointed by a Stacey Lee book yet, so I don't see why I would be disappointed by this one. Okay, I have one more wedding book here. So we have Sister of the Bollywood Bride by Nandini Bajpai. I've had this book for quite a while, and I think it just sounds adorable. Like, the main character, their mother has died, so she wants to throw the perfect dream Bollywood wedding that her mother would have thrown for her sister. That didn't make any sense. Basically, she wants to throw a really beautiful wedding for her sister, and I just love that. I also am into the drama lately, so why did drama? I don't know what just happened, but I would really like to read The Rumor Game by Danielle Clayton and Sona Chairai Potra, which is the authors, a book set at a Washington, D.C. elite boarding school. And actually, I don't know if it's a boarding school. It might just be a school. Yeah, it's just a private school. I don't know why I just said it was a boarding school. Sometimes my brain just makes decisions like about the story that didn't actually happen. But this is by the authors of Tiny Pretty Things, so I'm expecting it to be pretty mind-blowing. Okay, so those are all of the books that I am hoping to get to in the month of April. We're gonna hope that it's a really good reading month because I'm being very ambitious with things, but I think I should be able to hopefully make a really decent dent in things, but I'm not going to jinx myself. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and thank you so much to Where Did I Put the Book? Inkyard Press for sponsoring me today. Don't forget to check out A Forgery of Roses by Jessica S. Olsen. It's out now, and I will have a link down below for you guys to check it out. So thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you in another new one soon. Bye!